This time, we're going to write an equation in point-slope form from a table. And then once we have it in point-slope form, we're going to write it into slope-intercept form. To do that, the first thing we need to do is find a slope. So to find the slope, we need to look at the rise over the run, or the change in the y over the change in the x. So we're going to look to see what are we adding every single time in the y values. If we're adding from 590 to 540, it has to be a negative 50. Again, we would add a negative 50 and add a negative 50. On the x side, we're going to add a positive 10. Then when we put the change in the y over the change in the x, that gives us negative 50 over 10, which simplifies down to be negative 5. So at this point, we have our slope of negative 5. Then we just need to pick one point to write it in point slope form. So I want to pick the easiest point. I think 10, 590 is going to be the easiest point, so that's the one I'm going to use. You choose a point, and you can write the equation using that in point slope form. So I'm going to write it as y minus the y value of 590 set equal to our slope of negative 5 times x minus the x value of 10. That's in point slope form. So if we wanted it in point slope form, that would be our answer. But instead we want it in slope intercept form. So we need to simplify this equation and isolate that y variable. So to do that, the first thing we need to do is distribute the negative 5, giving us y minus 590 is equal to negative 5x. And then from here we have a negative 5 multiplied by a negative 10, which gives us a positive 50. Then to isolate y, we have to add 590, because right now we're subtracting 590 to both sides. That cancels, and when we add the 590 on the right side of our equal sign, we want to add it to the like term. We can't add it to the negative 5x because there's a variable here and not with the 590. So now we have y is equal to negative 5x plus 640 when we add those two together. And then we have our answer if we needed it in slope-intercept form. Let's try another example. Again, if we want to write it, if the directions say please write it in slope-intercept form, typically we would need a slope and a y-intercept. But in this case, we don't have a y-intercept because there is no x is equal to 0. So we can't go straight to slope-intercept form. We have to write it first in point slope form. We have 4 different ordered pairs, so we can find the slope using just 2 of them, or we can check to make sure that it's constant. So when we do that, we can look to see that here between 3,320 and 4,570, we're adding a positive 1,250. Between the next two numbers, 4,570 and 7,070, we're adding 2,500. Between the next two, from 7,070 to 10,820, we're adding 3,750. At first it doesn't look like it's the same, but then let's check the x values. This one's increasing by a positive 1, a positive 2, and a positive 3. We want to check to see, is it a constant slope, change in y over the change in x? Well, the first one is 1,250 over 1. Our next one is 2,500 over 2. And then we have 3,750 over 3. If we were to simplify each one of these, they would all simplify to be the same thing. So we know then that our slope is equal to 1,250. Now that we have a slope, We just need 1 point to write it in point-slope form. I'm going to look through and pick the one that I think is going to be the easiest. I think this first one, because they're the smallest numbers, is going to be the easiest. So that's the one I'm going to use. Y minus the y value set equal to our slope times x minus the x value of 2 from the same ordered pair. Now we have it in point-slope form. But we wanted it in slope-intercept form. So now we need to simplify and isolate this y variable. So to simplify, we're going to distribute, which gives us y minus 3,320 is equal to 1,250x minus 1,250 times 2, which is 2,500. Then from there, we would need to isolate y, so we use the inverse operation, so we're adding to both sides to the like term. That cancels, and now we have y is equal to 1,250x. When we add these two together, we have a negative plus a positive. I see that we have more positives than we do negatives, so I know it's going to be a positive. Now we just need to find the difference between them. So we can subtract 3,320 minus 2,500, which will give us 820. So we know we're going to be adding a positive 820. Again, more positives than negatives. So now we have our answer in slope-intercept form right here.